Hi everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Korea This Week, and I'm your host, Sang Kim. Today we have our communication director, Yong Kwon, with us. Thank you so much for joining us, Yong.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So we would like to start off by expressing our deepest condolences for those family that are involved in tragic ferry incident in Budapest. And I know there are still bodies that are being founded, and the rescue searches continues to go on in cooperation with the South Korean government and also the Hungarian government. So we really hope that remaining survivors do get found very soon and be returned to the families. So with that, we'll get started on the news. So last week, there was a Choson article that talked about how North Korea had executed massive punishment for those officials being responsible for the Hanoi summit.
Right.
And of course that had exploded, and that was all over the news last Friday, I think it was. So, what do we know from the Chosun article?
Right. So, according to the Chosun article, Kim Hyuk-chul, who is the vice foreign minister of North Korea, who's responsible for the nuclear negotiations with the United States, was reportedly executed by the North Korean state, and also the vice chairman of the Korean Workers' Party, Kim Young-chul, who was seen traveling to New York quite frequently, was reportedly sentenced to forced labor. That is what the report indicated, and its suggestion was that the North Korean state is going to take on a much more aggressive posture because clearly negotiations with the United States has failed, and as a result, the North Korean state is expressing its frustrations by purging members of the government who have participated in negotiations with the United States. Now, that was what the Chosun article reported. However, I think over the weekend we had some surprising developments, where not really surprising developments, but rather a picture appeared on the Korean Central News Agency, North Korea State News Agency, that showed Kim Young-chul, who was supposed to have been in forced labor detention, at an event with both Kim Jong-un and his wife.
Right.
So this brought into question whether or not even Kim Hyuk-chul was also executed or not. So that's where it currently stands.
Right. So this is not a new development within North Korea, right? So we've heard multiple false news in the past. For example, we've heard that Chang Song-taek was killed and fed by a pack of wild dogs. We also heard Hyun Sung-won was executed in public, but we saw her visiting Pyeongchang.
Right.
So this news, a constant news of execution, but we also see them again. So it's been happening. It happened before too. So how should we take this news of execution?
Well, I think there's an issue of people interpreting North Korea the way they want to. So there's a characterization of North Korea that's not entirely incorrect, that it is a very brutal Stalinist dictatorship and it's an autocracy that doesn't tolerate dissent. So it is a very brutal state, but as a result of our preconceived notions of North Korea, we assume, and we are more willing as audiences in the United States, to accept these storylines that these officials are just killed left and right by the state. And I think it's particularly exacerbated by the fact that with people like Kim Hyuk-chul and Kim Young-chul, unlike many other people in North Korea, they were far more visible to American audiences because of their trips to New York for the UN General Assembly, because they were particularly involved in the meetings with the summit in Singapore and Hanoi, because they were so visible. When they disappear from the public limelight, we want to assume that something terrible has happened because it's very different from how things operate in the United States. Mike Pompeo doesn't just suddenly disappear from the news cycle. Cabinet officials don't disappear from the news cycle. But because North Korea controls its media narrative very tightly, these things do occur in North Korea, but because we don't know how to interpret on our end, I think there are some interpretation issues that are created. And simultaneously, you have to wonder to what extent North Korea preys upon this perception from the abroad. So I don't think it's an accident that Kim Young-chul appeared all of a sudden in the in the media on this over the weekend. I think it is a response to people's assumption that he had been somehow, for some reason, punished for what had happened at Hanoi.
Right. And you're absolutely right. North Korea does pay a very close attention to the Western media and how we, including like the South Korean media and also the Western media, say about North Korea.
Right,
so they know that this conversation and online and on the news is going on. So that's probably the response to that. And also, you do raise a good point that Kim Hyuk-chul and Kim Young-chul are the names that we hear often because Kim Hyuk-chul is Steve Biegun's counterpart, and of course Kim Young-chul is Mike Pompeo's counterpart. So it does make sense that we do hear those names often, and we do pay attention to those names. And of course, when we don't see them anymore. That seems like an extra kind of obvious. So, what has been U.S. government's response or informed South Korean government?
Well, Mike Pompeo has said that he'll look into it, and I think part of the reason why the U.S. government, to some degree, is willing to, I don't want to say accept the storyline or take it, or rather, the reason why the U.S. government may be wanting to take this more seriously is because there is a degree of confusion on why there hasn't been reciprocation from the North Korean side. We know that our envoy, Steve Biegun, who is Kim Hyuk-chul's counterpart, has had difficulties engaging with the North Koreans. And if the story is that it's because there's no one on the other side, that Mike Pompeo and Steve Biegun has no one to talk to because they're all dead, that makes for a different narrative than if they're both alive and the North Korean state simply doesn't want to engage the negotiators right now. So I think the American government does have a desire to figure out, get a handle on whether or not these officials are dead or alive and what that means for how North Korea is approaching negotiations with the United States.
Right, because you would need a counterpart no matter what in order for any talk to move forward.
Right.
Absolutely. So, with Kim Young-chul reappearing in the news, I'm sure we'll hear more about this. Whether we'll see Kim Young-chul on the news again. So we'll see. We'll stay tuned for next step. I
mean, I will say though, either way, I think it's kind of it's not the best news for U.S. North Korea negotiations if they are dead, because we also don't know exactly when the picture with Kim Young-chul was taken. It very well could have been a picture from several months ago that just reappeared. But if it is the case that Kim Young-chul was punished, and that Kim Hyuk-chul and Kim Young-chul were both punished for the failures of the Hanoi summit, then it doesn't bode very well for how North Korea is going to engage with the United States going forward. If it is the other case, that they're still alive, then it also begs the question of why then has the United States and North Korea not engaged further on working levels. So I think in either instances, I think we're seeing an impasse in U.S. North Korea negotiations.
Great. So in a kind of related to that, still continuing the North Korea part, so a group of South Korean business leaders who are involved with Kaesong Industrial Complex are visiting the United States this week. They're on like a week-long trip to meet with different lawmakers and experts as well as State Department officials. And they're here in Washington. They're also going to LA. So the group are, just to give you the names, the Corporate Association of Kaesong Industrial Complex, and then officials from Kaesong Industrial District Foundation. So they're obviously very interested in where this process goes in terms of if they can go visit their factories in Kaesong or not, or when they can expect the Kaesong Industrial Complex to be open. So I thought it was really interesting that they're coming to the United States to meet with U.S. officials and kind of expressing their views on this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll probably hear more about it this week.
But perhaps to find out more about the Kaesong Industrial Complex and other special economic zones, perhaps people should come to KAI or tune in next week because we have...
Right, so next Tuesday, we have an event with Dr. Theo Clement from King's College London. He is going to talk about South Korea's special economic zones and how South Korea and China's involvement within the zone shapes North Korea's economy. So if you're interested, as always, we are posting all of our videos live on Facebook as well as on YouTube page. And of course, we post them after the event as well. And of course, Yong has been very good with live tweeting during our event. So even if you can't watch the video, you can still follow the tweets and kind of get the sense of what the speaker is talking about.
Absolutely. And Dr. Clement's academic paper series submission will also be available online before the event begins.
Right. So that's next Tuesday at noon. So stay tuned for more updates. With that, is there anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, just very briefly, we had data coming out from the South Korean government over the weekend that South Korea has had 6 consecutive months of export declines, particularly in the semiconductor sector. We can get more into the details of what, why, how, what this means. But broadly speaking, South Korea is usually seen as a bellwether for the broader global economy. So South Korea not doing very well in terms of export suggests that the global economy is also probably headed towards a bit of a difficulties in the months ahead.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Oh.
So with that, that's all we have for today. Just wanted to mention briefly, we do have an event tomorrow at the ICKS conference, but we are at our full capacity. But you're more than welcome to watch it online. Most of the sessions will be available online except for the lunch session with Special Representative Steve Began. So with that, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you so much for watching, and we'll be back next Monday at 2 p.m. Thank you.